Hundreds of years ago, humanity exhausted the planet's resources. Chaos and war quickly followed, and that time became known as the era of the Rusted Ones. The best scientists of that era worked to save what remained of civilization by developing a renewable energy source. However, this didn't solve the greatest challenge: human nature. Differences between people continued to divide them into classes, clans, and countries. So, they came up with a radical solution known as the transformation. At age 16, everyone undergoes an operation that turns them into their most perfect version. With everyone perfect, conflicts disappear. Until then, those under 16 anxiously await their turn to be transformed. Meanwhile, they are ignored and called uglies. Callie is a girl who has dreamed her whole life of becoming pretty. Her best friend, Piries, is about to have the operation, but until then, they often sneak out at night to observe the city, where those who have already undergone the surgery live. Callie marvels at how none of them seem to feel excluded or unhappy. She is impatient, but she still has to wait 3 months for her operation, while Piries will be transformed the next morning. They met when they were children, after Tallie's parents took her to the school where she would stay until she turned 16. Piries, known as Big Nose, quickly became her friend and nicknamed her Cross Eyes due to her slightly misaligned eyes. One night, on the bridge that separates the city of the Pretties, they promised to be best friends forever, sealing their pact with a cut on the palms of their hands. Now that Piries is about to have the surgery and move in with the Pretties, he promises Tallie that he won't forget her and that he won't erase the scar on his hand. They agree to meet on the bridge in a month so Piries can tell her what life is like on the other side. The next morning, at the graduation assembly, Dr. Cable, the district governor, announces that the procedure will make them pretty, both inside and out, eliminating hatred and discrimination based on physical appearance. When the ceremony ends, Tallie says goodbye to Piries with a tight hug, reminding him of their meeting on the bridge in a month. During the following weeks, Tallie undergoes several scans in preparation for her upcoming surgery. She thinks about the changes she wants to make, like the color of her eyes or her hair. She tries to contact her friend Piries, but he doesn't respond to any of her messages. A month later, Tallie waits until dark to hack her bedroom window and escape. She arrives at the bridge, hoping to meet Piries, but is disappointed to find he isn't there. Worried about what might have happened to him, she crosses the bridge into the city. Thanks to a mask, she can see how beautiful everything is there. Finally, she finds Piries, who now has blonde hair and a fixed nose. But it's not just his appearance that has changed. When he sees her, Piries doesn't recognize her at first, until Tallie takes off the mask. He tells her he doesn't remember what they talked about a month ago and that he even decided to erase the scar on his hand, realizing after the operation that he didn't want it. Their conversation is interrupted when Tallie is identified as an intruder. She is forced to escape using a special vest that allows her to jump from great heights. She reaches the bridge but is about to be caught when a girl appears and helps her escape on a hoverboard. Together, they manage to flee and soon discover they both enjoy breaking the rules. Tallie learns that the girl, named Shay, has the same birthday as her, and that the important people in her life are no longer around. The next morning, instead of going to class, Tallie spends the day with Shay, who teaches her how to ride the board. Over time, they start to build a friendship. Tallie shows Shay how to use her ring to get food or sneak out of the dorms at night, taking advantage of system glitches. The day before her operation, Shay talks to Tallie about the possibility of not undergoing the surgery. Aging and wrinkling go against everything they've been taught, but Shay doesn't think it's such a bad idea. Later, they meet by a river. They both leave their rings behind so as not to be detected by the watchtowers. Then they use their boards to reach the rusty ruins, which were once a roller coaster. Although it no longer works, the magnetic boards can glide over the tracks. When they arrive at a ruined city, they climb to one of the upper floors of a building. Shay lights a fire with flint and steel and reveals to Tallie that she won't have the surgery. Instead, she plans to run away to the smoke, a place where no one is judged by their appearance. Shay confesses that the night they met on the bridge, she was going to escape with some friends but got scared. However, after meeting Tallie, she realized that what she really wants can't be found in the city. Once operated on, they'll tell her what to do, and she'll lose her freedom. Shay asks Tallie to come with her to be free, but Tallie replies that she doesn't want to be free, she wants to be perfect. When Shay realizes that Tallie won't join her, she gives her a sheet with instructions on how to find her in case she changes her mind. Then, another fire lights up in the distance, and Tallie watches as her friend leaves. The next morning, Tallie is ready to become pretty. After the assembly, she is taken to the operating room, where patients are called one by one. However, Tallie is brought before Dr. Cable. They have discovered Shay's disappearance and believe that a man named David has brainwashed her, convincing people to trust him and holding them against their will. Dr. Cable asks Tally to help find Shay, but she refuses to reveal her friend's secret. As a result, her surgery is postponed, and she is sent back to her dorm until she decides to cooperate. That night, Tally receives an unexpected visit from Piries. She is happy to see him and tells him everything that is happening. After listening, Piries advises her to say everything she knows so they can be together in the city. He apologizes, explaining that his behavior is different because, after the surgery, things are no longer the same. Tally decides to help, and the doctor reveals that David plans to attack them, as he and his group believe their way of life is better. The doctor warns her that David wants to use a weapon to destroy the city and its way of life. According to her, David brainwashed Shay, who is now under his control, and if she tries to leave, he could harm her. She assigns Tally the mission to find the smoke, infiltrate, and locate the weapon before it's too late, giving her a necklace she must wear when she finds the weapon. Tally's journey begins on a roller coaster that takes her to train tracks. After following them, she reaches a large wall she must climb. She then crosses a ruined path to a field of white flowers, where she waits to be found. Meanwhile, Dr. Cable meets with Piries and thanks him for convincing Tally to help. She asks how he felt when he saw her, and Piries admits that seeing her made him feel things he hadn't experienced since his surgery. Then the doctor talks to him about a new program that promises true mental clarity for people like him. Tally wakes up struggling to breathe, surrounded by fire. Luckily, David rescues her. He checks her belongings and finds a hidden tracker on her board, but he doesn't notice anything strange about the necklace she's wearing. When Dr. Cable finds out the tracker was removed from the board, she sends 2 special agents to check a 10 kilometers radius. Meanwhile, David takes Tally to an outpost where she must prove her loyalty. To her surprise, Shay is also there, and she is happy to see her. That night, Shay asks Tally who gave her the necklace. Tally decides to lie and says it was Piries when he visited her. She then tries to convince Shay to return to the city, but Shay refuses and asks her to meet the people of the smoke first. The next day, Tally discovers that the orchids, once considered an ecological solution, are actually toxic and destroy everything in their path. So, David and his people set fires to eliminate the orchids. With the help of an old helicopter, David shows Tally the reality while Shay handles burning the plants. But Croy detects enemy movement, forcing David to descend quickly, causing Shay to fall. Tally immediately jumps from the helicopter to rescue her friend. Together, they manage to escape, although the soldiers seem unaffected by the fire. Croy suspects they were found right after Tally's arrival, but her bravery in saving Shay makes David trust her. They finally reach the smoke, a place where people grow their food, work together, and don't use money, but share and barter. Everyone is there by choice. Tally begins searching for the secret weapon but soon realizes that the people of the smoke don't need weapons or bombs to live. Their mission is to preserve nature, unlike the city, which manipulates it, making people feel lonely and insecure, with no time to think, read, learn, or dream. Tally soon gets blisters because she's not used to working, but this doesn't stop her, and she agrees to let David teach her how to use the crossbow. Later, she learns that, unlike her, David grew up there, raised by his parents. The two start growing closer, so much so that when David sees the blisters on Tally's hands, he gives her his gloves. When Shay sees this, she explains to Tally that, in that place, objects have special value because David made those gloves with his own hands. The fact that he gave them to her means he likes her. On the other hand, Shay asks Tally to make a decision, stay there or leave, as it wouldn't be fair to either David or Shay, both of whom care for Tally. During this time, Tally realizes that the people there are good, and she finds it hard to believe they possess a weapon of mass destruction. One day, while alone with David, she asks him about the supposed weapon they plan to use to annihilate the city. Upon hearing this, David asks her to follow him and takes her to a cabin where he introduces her to his parents. Tally is fascinated by how much David resembles his parents, as this doesn't happen in the city. They explain to her that before living in the smoke, they were state cosmetic surgeons. In their last year in the city, David's mother worked on the Morphological Standards Committee, giving her access to the entire medical database. Meanwhile, David's father was trying to design a safer surgery, as several people died each year due to these operations, although no one knew because it was a well-kept secret. David's father discovered a pattern of brain injuries that dulled people's ability to think clearly, leaving them with a false sense of happiness. Upon discovering this, Dr. Cable ordered him to stop his research. They realized that these injuries weren't a side effect but the goal, meant to control everyone. David's mother and Dr. Cable were friends and underwent surgery at the same time, but because of her stubborn and rebellious nature, David's mother was invited into the inner circle, where they received a cure that restored their ability to think. However, this was only applied to the doctors, while others underwent more surgeries, turning them into automatons. Seeing what was happening, both David's mother and father decided to stop performing surgeries and age naturally. Since then, they've been offering an alternative of free thought and self-acceptance, spending the last 20 years trying to replicate the cure. In their lab, they managed to create the base serum but need a synthetic component to heal the brain injuries. This is what Dr. Cable considers the weapon. David's father is looking for a substitute, but when he finds it, he'll have to test it on volunteers, despite the risk of side effects such as seizures, brain damage, or even death. Realizing she was wrong, Tally decides to destroy the necklace and join the smoke. The next time she sees David, she tries to confess her true intentions, but he interrupts her, saying that the only thing that matters is who she is now. Tally admits that maybe, after all, she's ugly, but David thinks she's beautiful, and they kiss. The next morning, a loud noise wakes them up. The soldiers have arrived. However, these are not ordinary soldiers, they have superhuman strength and speed. Callie and David manage to hide and watch as everyone is captured. Callie is shocked to see Pieris among the soldiers, while David's parents try to stop Dr. Cable. Dr. Cable is looking for David, and when she gets no response, she orders Pieris to kill his father. Callie, stunned, appears, unable to believe what her best friend has done. Upon seeing her, Dr. Cable recognizes Tally and exposes her in front of everyone, including Shay and David. To make matters worse, she mentions that the procedure to make everyone their perfect is already scheduled. However, Tally manages to reach a hut and blow it up, buying enough time to escape with David. The rest are taken to the ships while the laboratory and all its contents are destroyed. Tally reaches a cave where she tries to explain to David that she didn't know destroying the necklace would call them, but it no longer matters. David is determined to rescue them and will need Tally's help since she knows the city and how to enter the building where they will be held. Upon arriving at the school, Tally encounters some classmates who wanted to join the smoke. Seeing David, they decide to help, and Tally orders them to create a distraction in the sky. This triggers the city's alarms, and the soldiers go out to investigate. Meanwhile, Tally and David infiltrate the building where the prisoners are held. They quickly encounter a guard, whom David overpowers and takes his ring. With its help, they manage to free their people, but Shay is not among them, as she was taken for surgery. Tally, along with David and his mother, tries to stop it, but they arrive too late. Shay has been perfected, and both her appearance and behavior have drastically changed. Pieris and Dr. Cable arrive shortly after, forcing them into one of the machines for their surgery. Dr. Cable explains that if people have the option to choose, they will end up destroying the world. In fact, they almost did, so humanity needs to be guided, and only some are fit to do so. Just as the surgery is about to begin, Croy appears and destroys the place with a flamethrower. David's mother takes advantage of the distraction to search through the boxes and find the missing synthetic component. Callie grabs Shay, and they all escape, but they encounter Pieris. Callie tries to remind him of their friendship, but David doesn't trust him and attacks, starting a fight. However, Pieris is much stronger. Then Tally uses the hoverboard to push him toward the edge. Pieris manages to hold on with one hand, and at the last moment, he recognizes his best friend, just before falling. With the help of the hoverboards, they manage to escape and reach the ruined city. There, David's mother hopes to complete the formula for the cure. Callie hopes to cure Shay, but she doesn't want to, and David's mother doesn't want to experiment on someone who doesn't wish to be cured. So, Tally decides to be the test subject. She is willing to undergo surgery, hoping to be cured, even at the risk that Dr. Cable might end her life. She promises not to forget who she really is, in the hope that David will forgive her and come back for her. Sometime later, Tally arrives at her new home, with a new appearance, happy to be perfect.